This is Dead Serious, a show about short horror stories worthy of discussion. I'm Dead Palette, and it's Halloween month, weeb. Today we're taking a look at a no-sleep story entitled The Episode of Nickelodeon's Double Dare That Never Aired in the United States. That's a long title to get across the point, Double Dare Lost Episode. That's really weird that they made that an entire sentence, but that's the no-sleep mentality, isn't it? Anyway, let's get right into this. There's an interesting history behind satellite dishes and satellite broadcasting in the early 90s. Some broadcasters intentionally scrambled their signals to prevent unauthorized reception by viewers who didn't pay to receive them. Others, though, after the fall of the Berlin Wall and the explosion of satellite dish use across the former Eastern Bloc, saw a great opportunity to reach a new audience. Whether or not they admit it today, Nickelodeon was one of the opportunistic broadcasters. Well, that's certainly an interesting start to this, a history that I'm sure a lot of people didn't know about, and I'm not sure actually happened, but it's very believable. I'm very invested in this now. It's a little bit of a lesson about something that you wouldn't normally learn about how satellites work and everything like that. That's not your everyday information, and that's the kind of stuff that I find interesting in these kinds of stories. Anyway, Viacom, Nickelodeon's parent company, committed millions of dollars to research and develop better broadcasting technologies to saturate the new markets of children's programming, hoping those kids would grow up and have subconscious loyalty to the Nickelodeon brand in various programs. What this meant was the launch of new, highly experimental satellites and ground-based satellite dishes. So it's kind of like they're trying to fight back against Disney's ingrained cultural influence and have Nickelodeon as a rival to that. And that's kind of funny because I was certainly a Nickelodeon kid. I never watched Disney when I was growing up. The first Disney movie I ever watched was Mulan, and that was the only one I was interested in, and it gave me many weird feelings about boyish tom girls. But anyway, and now as an adult, I have no loyalty to Nickelodeon at all. I don't watch any of their cartoons, and in fact, I watch cartoons from other networks and stuff. That's weird, but I see what they're trying to do here and kind of come up with something that feels conspiratorial. I like it. The hardware deployment was completed in December of 1991, 2 weeks before the collapse of the Soviet Union in September of 1992. In 1992, the first and only broadcast using this new technology was conducted. On October 9th, 1992, the new broadcasting technology was made illegal in the United States. I was a Viacom engineer working for Nickelodeon in September of 1992. I was excited about the new satellite capabilities, just like any tech nerd would have been. I remember the first time our crew read the signal power specifications and the range of EM bands the technology would exploit. Bill Janes, the guy working with me at the time, remarked, "What the fuck is this, Star Trek?" I didn't even laugh. I just said something like, "Yeah, seriously." The stuff we'd been using seemed decades ahead of anything we'd ever seen. Aliens, right? So we got some nice classical Fleming effect right here, a bunch of jargon that we don't necessarily understand, but we've heard enough of to understand that this person knows what they're talking about. Feels like it's coming from a place of authority and a place on the inside, you know. I'm very intrigued to see what they're setting up for. Of course, like any technology, there were a lot of bugs to work out. Test receivers on Viacom's charted ships thousands of miles out at sea were getting burned out by the signals coming down from the new satellite. To make matters worse, if the signal did make it to the receivers without damaging them, the video quality was poor. Blurring, static, and drop frames interlaced with noise plagued the testing period before we could get a handle on them. Still, the picture wasn't as good as we'd hoped. New cameras using some bizarre optical trick seemed to help get the test pattern to appear much more clearly, though. Not perfect, but good enough. Once we received the new cameras, Engineering Central over at Viacom Technology Headquarters gave my crew at Nickelodeon Studios the go-ahead to start broadcasting the new tech on September 22nd, 1992. It was going to be of a live, unedited taping of Double Dare. Unedited taping, huh? Okay. The Viacom brass figured the live taping was as good as the pre-recorded one. New viewers in Eastern Europe and Russia would get a chance to see Mark Summers' personality and the other behind-the-scenes things that marketing research claimed they'd be interested in. So taking tally of what's happened so far, we are 6 paragraphs in, and this is the first actual mention of Double Dare. Up until this point, it's been entirely about technology, history, the Nickelodeon Corporation. So it is not front-loading. It is really pushing its grounding, and I love that. The story has really got me enraptured. I'm interested. This is something so far that you should be emulating. This is how you should start a Lost Episode story if you're audacious enough to write one. It's interesting that they're using Nickelodeon in the title and Double Dare in the title and, essentially Lost Episode. And they're just now getting to that. That is not what I was expecting at all. We began the broadcast at 11 a.m. Pacific time. Things were going well. There were a lot of drop frames early on, but things smoothed out. Interestingly, one of Viacom's sources in Bulgaria and one in Activia said not only were there no reports of burned out dishes, but the signal strength was so high it bled into neighboring EM bands, forcing the Double Dare broadcast onto multiple channels on either side of the main one. At the start of the broadcast, it was estimated 60% of people with satellite dishes in Eastern Europe and Russia were tuned into Double Dare. Just for the sake of catching up people that don't know what's going on, Double Dare is an American television game show on which 2 teams compete to win cash and prizes by answering trivia questions and completing messy stunts known as physical challenges. Hosted by Mark Summers, the program premiered on Nickelodeon October 6th, 1986 as its first game show. The series saw many adjustments in scheduling and titling throughout its run. Okay, I think you get the idea. Typical Nickelodeon stuff. Let's get kids messy and have them compete for prizes with their family. It's basically Family Feud, but for kids. Anyway, the show was nearing its end and the winner was announced. Now, this particular iteration of the show was Family Double Dare. So Mark Summers, the mother, the father, and the 2 sons were waiting for prizes to be unveiled. I knew it was going to be a car. It was always a car. The studio lights dimmed, and the moment the car was unveiled, the multicolored strobe light effect was turned on. There was a flash of heat, a brief scream from one of the family members, and Mark Summers was standing alone, holding one of the murdered children. No, I'm just fucking with you. If you're reading along, you didn't fall for it, but I just wanted to fuck with you and make you think that this story shit the bed there. Mark Summers was standing alone next to the car. In the headphones, I heard panic shouting from Engineer Central. There were a lot of voices and a ton of background noise, but one clear voice came through. Turn it off! Alright, I like this because nothing necessarily supernatural and nothing violent or anything like that has happened, but clearly something has gone wrong. And there's a bit of an overreaction coming from Engineering Central. So turn it off, they're yelling that. But we're not sure what exactly has gone wrong. There was a scream from one of the family members. It doesn't say who. I'm assuming it's one of the kids if they can't tell the voice apart, because kids have higher pitched voices. but a mother and a father would presumably have different sounding voices. Mark Summers was standing alone next to the car. So the family must have disappeared or something. Anyway, there were a lot of voices and a ton of background noise. Okay. I had the crew kill the cameras, but I cut the broadcast feed. Mark Summers looked at me and my crew, turned around, and headed toward his dressing room. So we don't necessarily know what's going on with Mark Summers at this point, the host of the show. Why he's looking at him and his crew turning around and heading towards his dressing room. It's ominous, but it's not necessarily to be unexpected. We don't know if he knows what's going on, or if he's blaming the crew, or what have you, but that's interesting. Lots of things happened at Viacom and Nickelodeon after that. Reports began trickling in from Eastern Europe about a devastating and inexplicable accident involving people with illegal satellite dish connections. Corporate circulated an internal briefing. I wasn't supposed to see it, but I knew a guy over there who shared it with me. The reports included photographs. 20 years of therapy have done little to erase what those pictures contained. Alright, so we don't necessarily know what happened on the actual video, but it had some sort of effect on viewers. Okay. The moment the lights strobed, they triggered something in the experimental optics of the camera. Whatever that something was, the organic matter in front of the camera flashed out of that point in space. We've been able to figure out why, we've never been able to figure out why or how it happened, nor were we able to figure out why the 4 family members reappeared in each and every location the broadcast was received. 4 people copied tens of thousands of times. They were beamed across the world. What? That is so fucking weird and unbelievable. If you have not read this story, and you were predicting something, I guarantee you it wasn't those 4 family members were copied and pasted around the world. That is so fucking weird. The worst part of it was how they came. The family signal reached the dishes and came through the television connected to them. They merged with every single living thing that had their eyes focused on the screen. One cluster of 4 family members occupying the space of each viewer's eyes. Those were the photographs I saw, and there were hundreds of them. Not just in Eastern Europe either, but friends of mine from control rooms at Viacom and Nickelodeon. Alright, so we're going to get into some super magical non-disclosure agreement that makes this all go away somehow, aren't we? That is so ridiculous. Oh my god, I was not expecting this. What a treat. What a treat, people. Viacom spent billions of dollars to keep this quiet. The Eastern European governments, desperate for cash to aid in their independence, agreed to bury the incident. Of course they did. Agreed to bury the incident after receiving cargo planes full of cash. All the Viacom and Nickelodeon employees who witnessed or were associated with the victims received large settlements to shut them up. Then we had to sign something promising we'd never talk. I signed it. Of course you did. Oh my god. Non-disclosure agreements don't work this way. You cannot just expect if we have 7 billion people on Earth and 500 million sign non-disclosure agreements, guess what? Word's gonna get out. Okay, guys? So fucking ridiculous. And I was really liking this story too, but I guess it's not trying to make me happy. No sleep, people. No sleep. Where realism is king. The thing is, I'm not going to be around much longer. Cancer got me pretty good. Viacom will be after me, but I have got nothing they can't take away that hasn't already been claimed by what's eating me away. It should be what's eating away at me, right? Or can both versions of that be grammatically correct? I don't know. But I'm not telling you this because of what happened in 1992. What's done is done. There's nothing that can change it. Here's why I'm telling you this. There's only one thing that's been bothering me all these years. Mark Summers. Okay, so I don't think that there's any grounding this story back to realism, but I am curious now. That is an interesting proposition, an interesting question, rather. What is going on with Mark Summers? Mark Summers was directly in the shot with the family when they disappeared. He didn't go anywhere, though. He was perfectly fine, just walked away. I did my best to not let it bother me, and for a while, it just struck me as one of those things. Weird things. Last weekend, though, when an older orderly was helping me off the elevator and out of the hospital, I saw Mark Summers walking by. Everything flooded back to me at once, so I stopped and asked him, "Mark, what really happened on that day in 1992? Pretty weird you weren't affected, huh?" Mark just looked at me for a minute before a smirk appeared in the corner of his mouth. "Not that weird, actually," he replied. His left eye drooped, and I saw a light in what appeared to be fiber optic cable tangled inside his skull. Not weird at all. Oh my god. Holy shit, what a thrill ride of a story. Up and down, betrayals. What the fuck was this story? This is so weird because it starts off really trying to be Ashcan horror, really trying to be grounded and realistic, and then it takes this turn into weird-ass fiction. Not your normal kind of weird fiction, but some super weird fiction. And then they try and cover it up and say that, no, this really happened. That's so bizarre to me. They could even salvage this by saying that it was a handful of incidents instead of 80%, anyone who was who was viewing it getting affected. If it only affected some people, and then there was hush money involved in that, and non-disclosure agreements, you cannot make tens and thousands of people shut up about something. Word will get out. Like, there are abuses in North Korea, and they try and be secretive, and it's not like we don't know. We know what happens. Meanwhile, if it's just, a dozen, 2 dozen, these weird incidents that are unexplainable, you can maybe cover those up. That's much more plausible. So I think you could ground such a ridiculous concept if it just wasn't at such a massive magnitude. But the story kind of got greedy, and that's what happens. Let me know what you think about this story. I certainly enjoyed it. I can't say I didn't enjoy it. Now, if you enjoyed that, consider helping out the community and supporting my channel. You can support the community by conversing in the comments below, going to 2spooky.com for original horror stories, and trying your hand at short horror yourself. You can support me by subscribing to the channel, following me on the social media links down below in the description, and pledging to my Patreon, which is also down below. Thank you so much for your time, and now on to our sponsor and this non-moment in time, which is Hershey Kisses. Hershey Kisses, little chocolate nipples.